degrees of trend. Now, we label cycles by degrees to organize the price patterns, which helps us to project the future price movements. Basically, it's a way for us to keep track of the different cycles, the different fractals. Now, I personally do not spend a lot of time labeling charts. I'll do it more so for the follow-up service just so we're all on the same page. But one of the things that I did not like about Elliott was I spent so much time labeling charts. I felt I had to label charts from the daily chart all the way down to the 5-minute chart, not to break any rules because there was such a heavy focus on those very rigid rules. And I ended up spending more time labeling charts than I did trading the market, making money, and that was pretty counterproductive. It wasn't what I was trying to accomplish. Okay, so you don't have to go and label every single little fractal. You really only have to label what's relevant to the now. Okay, what's going to affect your trading now. Now, for the different degrees, we use different time frames to analyze the degrees or cycles, but they are not time frame specific. And we're basically going to use the same labeling structure as they do in Elliott wave, the grand supercycle, the cycle degree, the primary degree, intermediate, minor, minute, minuet, subminuet, and micro. And this is how we're going to do it in the follow-up service. Again, in your own personal trading, you can come up with your own system if you want to. It only matters that it makes sense to you. Truthfully, it only matters that it makes sense to you. If you want to have a grand supercycle with a 1 and a circle around it, just to be able to separate it from the supercycle, that's fine. And you'll see different waivers will use different labels for their waves. Okay, so let's go ahead and just have a look at a price chart here. This is a current Euro USD, just so you can see how I have the different degrees labeled. Okay, so here we are. You can see we have a larger double pattern here. So we have a larger double that's made up of smaller fractal movements. Okay, so each price cycle is labeled. This first price cycle was also a double that made up this W. And you can see I didn't label every little fractal because we had another 3-wave cycle that made this W. So we basically had an A, B, C that made up this W, another X wave, then another move down, which completed the larger degree X wave. Okay, so this 3-wave cycle is a WXY, which made up the X wave. So I didn't put the Y on here because that was the end of the cycle, and the cycle was a larger degree cycle. The same thing here. This A, B made up a W wave, so I didn't put the C. I just made the A, B, W, X, another A, B, Y. Okay, so the degrees of trend are just the smaller fractal movements that make up the larger cycles. And you're actually getting a little bit of a glimpse into the next sections about that's going to cover the actual patterns that we look at, which are the ABCs, doubles, and triples. And we'll actually come back to this chart, I think, after the next couple of sections. I want to come back to this chart and really break this down to show everybody a couple of things here about these patterns. Okay, so anyway, those are the degrees of trend, basically the fractals that make up the larger patterns at each degree, and we're going to label those to keep track of the patterns basically. Now, in my own trading, I wouldn't have most of these on here. I would have this labeled as a W, X, and a Y. Okay, I wouldn't have all these little fractals labeled in my own trading. Okay, so stay focused on what's relevant to the now. Don't worry about going back and labeling every little cycle, every little fractal.